Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for the March 5th board meeting of the Berkeley Unified School District Board of Education. Can you hear me okay out there? Wonderful. Great to see all of your faces. We haven't seen a packed boardroom like this in a while, so it is really great to see everyone, and we look forward to what you are here advocating for and hearing your advocacy during public comment. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:28 p.m. Apologies for being a little bit late. We had some important things that we needed to handle in closed session, so we appreciate all of the grace that you all are providing us to start a little bit later than our normal time. At this time, we will approve this evening's board agenda. Is there a motion from the Board of Education to approve our agenda tonight?
I'll move.
It's been moved by Director Shinosky. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Chang. All board directors who would like to vote in favor, please signify with a sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposers? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Tonight's agenda is approved. At this time, we will move it over to Director Chang, who will report out from closed session.
On item 3.1, the district provided an update to the board. 3.2, the district provided an update to the board. Director Korn moved 25-030. Director Vasudev seconded. All board directors voted unanimously. Director Korn moved 25-031. Director Vasudev seconded. All board directors voted unanimously. With 3.3, Director Chang moved and Director Korn seconded. All board directors voted unanimously, and 3.4 will be continued. Thanks.
Thank you. That is the report out from closed session. If she is ready, we'll pass it over to the superintendent, who will give her superintendent comments at this time.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, BUSD family. So on Monday, we kicked off our second annual March Madness Attendance Challenge. It's a bracket-style tournament where schools separated into elementary, middle, and high school levels compete for the highest attendance rate. And on Monday, we kicked off our second annual March Madness Attendance Challenge. We have our schools separated into elementary, middle, and high school levels, and they compete for the highest attendance rate. And the winning school will win a big, shiny trophy. Bigger and better than last year's big, shiny trophy. So each week, BUSD schools will be competing against other schools to see who has the highest attendance rate for that particular week. At the end of the 4-week challenge, schools will be awarded with either a first place trophy, a second place trophy, or a third place trophy, or a certificate that notes other standings. Additionally, the school with the highest overall attendance rate for the month of March will receive that attendance trophy and, of course, bragging rights. Attendance really matters in BUSD, and so we talk about it, and it's fun and it's exciting, but we also know it's really important for our babies to be in school every day to engage in the rigorous and responsive instruction that our teachers work so hard to provide. Students who attend school regularly increase academic skills, gain important emotional and social skills, and they get to be with their friends and other members of the BUSD family, all while building a foundation for positive life outcomes. And so we want to make sure that this is a fun month, this is an exciting month. We want to see who's going to win that big shiny trophy, but we also want to make sure that our babies understand that even after the month of March is over, that they still need to attend school on time every day. So please share this with friends. We got some of our educators in the room this evening and even some of our students. So get ready, y'all, to make sure that your school is showcased as the best attendance in your category. Again, elementary, middle, or high school. The March Madness Attendance Challenge has officially begun. Every year, California requires school districts to participate in an annual process referred to as March 15th notices. The purpose is to provide employees notice of possible change in duties or reassignment in sufficient time to seek satisfactory employment elsewhere should they choose. By law, employees must be notified by March 15th. This timeline is required by law and comes before we have any final information about our budget or any confirmation about what our budget allocations are for the next year. So the timing of these notices and the legal requirement don't oftentimes match districts' budgeting processes or the timeline that districts follow to get to their final budget. These March 15th notices come to the board tonight in the form of resolutions. And so I want to call your attention to the resolutions as they exist on our agenda. You will find two of these resolutions under our consent calendar, 12.3 and 12.4. These two resolutions reflect job categories and positions without names that will be possibly reduced from our certificated and classified employees. Positions that are on these two resolution lists represent members from Berkeley Federation of Teachers, Berkeley Council of Classified Employees, and Local 21. In addition to these, in closed session, the board considered a list of administrative and central office positions representing unrepresented central office staff and those in the Union of Berkeley Administrators, or UBA, for potential reassignment and reduction as well. So again, it's the two resolutions that you see in our open session consent calendar, as well as resolutions that were presented to the board in closed session. These lists note staff positions that have been identified as possible positions that may need to be reduced or eliminated. I want to stress possible and may in that sentence. The action that the board takes this evening does not actually mean the positions are being eliminated. These March 15th notices are not unique to Berkeley Unified. Many of us in this room who have been in education for years are familiar with this practice, and more you might be seeing headlines of other districts talking about their need to consider staff reductions as well, not just in Alameda County, but across the state. I want to be clear that BUSD is sending these notices both in response to the practice that I just talked about, the legal requirement that we have, but also as a precautionary measure as our district works to balance our budget by $8 million. And that's in addition to the $7 million reductions we made, you might recall, last spring. We are among all of the other districts in Alameda County. Every single other district in Alameda County, like us, is facing a fiscal forecast that is bleaker than it has been in previous years. In anticipation of that, our district began our budgeting process even earlier than we did in previous years. I have a group called the Superintendent's Budget Advisory Committee, and we began meeting in October to start to ground ourselves in our core values of resource allocation, to really start to think about and get aligned on our budget balancing strategies, and to understand our budget in general and think about what our budget reduction target needs to be. And even with that early start, and really early iterations of budget balancing strategies and targets, we still find ourselves, even right now in March, having to prepare for a number of fiscal unknowns. We are working with a budget reduction target that is still precarious, as we are still trying to wait for confirmation around revenues from our state. A critical part of superintendency and the work of district leaders is to be good fiscal stewards as we develop our budget and to ensure we provide updates to our board and our community around the process of developing our budget. Many of you have heard our business team present the first interim budget and even provide budget updates on the governor's budget earlier this year, 2025. You can learn more about our fiscal forecast by coming out on March 19th, where our Associate Superintendent of Business Services will provide an update on our second interim report, as well as more information about the governor's budget. We have learned some things new and the fiscal outlook for our district. If you're not able to attend, remember that all of these meetings are recorded. I also want to invite those who are interested in really understanding more about our budget, as well as engaging in the process that we're going through as a community to move towards our reduction targets, to come out to our Superintendent's Budget Advisory Committee. It's a virtual meeting, however, it's a public meeting, and the meeting dates can be found on our district website. Our next meeting is on March 12th at 4 p.m. For those who don't have time to make those meetings, all of those Superintendent Budget Advisory Committee meetings are recorded and posted on our website, as well as all the artifacts that we discuss as we again move towards budget reduction targets and just work to better understand and align around some critical budget decisions. I understand that for our staff, a notice of possible layoff or reassignment can cause confusion and concern. Again, like I said, I've received one every year for the tenure of my career on my birthday, March 15th. And I'll say it again, I said it in a letter that I sent to you all last week. We value every single member of the BUSD community. I know that each of you plays a critical role in supporting us to move towards our collective mission to serve our students and families. I heard earlier this evening that how we start this process matters because how we end defines us. That really resonated with me. As we engaged in over $7 million of budget reductions last year, we grounded ourselves in our core values of resource allocation. When we started these really critical conversations this year in October, and in the months that have happened since then, we have rooted ourselves in the principles of equity, inclusion, transparency, and being data-informed and student-centered. No decisions have been made yet. We will continue to hold these values and these principles at the core as we navigate over the next few months towards those decisions, making sure to engage in a thoughtful budgeting process before we make any final decisions about resource allocations, before we make any final decisions about changes to programs, and before we make any final decisions about changes in personnel. I spoke with my board this evening, and we will do those processes and engage in those conversations and move towards transparency, not just in SBAC, not just in board presentations to the board, but also by having public conversations around the various scenarios that we are exploring, specifically around staffing in the months to come. Finally, as we are talking about staffing and the people that matter in our district, I want to take the last few minutes that I have to honor and prepare to say goodbye to a long-term BUSD staff member, Principal Ms. Heidi Weber, who is sitting with us right here in the front of the room. You can clap now. Ms. Heidi started student teaching, y'all. She was a student teacher when she was just 21 years old here in Berkeley Unified, and has worked in service to students and their families over a career spanning 31 years. I'm not even 31, 31 years. 30 of those years right here in BUSD. So when I say good evening, BUSD family, I'm talking about Heidi. Heidi is BUSD family. You might know Ms. Weber in her current role as the principal of Berkeley Technology Academy, or BTA, and Berkeley Independent Study, BIS, as well as our home and hospital instruction and Herrick Hospital program. But Ms. Weber has worn many hats at Berkeley Unified. She taught ELD and English at Berkeley High School for 20 years. She was a founding team member of the Arts and Humanities Academy, also known as AHA, and was the teacher leader for EL Newcomer Program, AKA Multilingual Learner Program, for 6 years. But that's not all. Ms. Weber was an instructional coach at BHS for 6 years, bringing Constructing Meaning Academic Language Framework to BHS, and then BUSD overall, and she served as a dean at BHS for a year. You've done it all. Oh, wait, she said 2, correct me, 2 years. She was a dean at BHS for 2 years. She became the Berkeley Independent Study Principal over 7 years ago, and then soon also became the principal at BTA, where she has overseen a 6-year WASC accreditation. I have personally been struck by how deeply Ms. Weber cares for the academic and emotional well-being of her students, and her commitment to make real and true for all students the district's mission. You know what it is. I've heard Ms. Weber say in so many of our times together when she was engaging community, it's deeply good to be sitting here together in community. Dare I take your words, Ms. Heidi, or speak on behalf of the hundreds of students, families, and staff that have had the pleasure of working with you over the past 30-something years. But I cannot let you leave us without saying that it's been deeply good having you as a member of our BUSD family, Ms. Heidi. Deeply good. And I know that we are not just good, but better, so much better, as a result of your person, your passion, your service, and your leadership. Thank you for being BHS, BUSD, BTA, BIS, Berkeley family.
Thank you, Superintendent Ford Morthell. And Ms. Weber, be ready because you're going to get a lot more comments from the board when we get to our board comments. But we are very grateful for all that you have done for our community and are incredibly sad to see you go, but definitely impacted by all of your work. At this time, we will move to open session for public comment. I want to make a comment about how this will go. So I received a number of cards that are green for public comments around the tennis courts. And so what I will do is I will allow our students to speak individually. But for those of you who are here for the tennis courts, we will give you a few minutes as a group to speak. So I'm going to ask that you take this time right now to kind of govern yourselves accordingly and organize yourselves so that you all can make all of the comments that you need to make within the time frame that you are given for the group for tennis courts. After that, everyone else will be given 1 minute for their public comments who are speaking on other items that are not around the tennis courts. I hope that makes sense. And the tennis courts, people who are here to speak, we've done this before, so you know how to do this dance, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and begin with our students first. Then we will go to the tennis court group, and then we will go to individual speakers. All right. We will begin with our student speakers who are here to speak for the tennis court. So we're going to first start with, I believe that's Henry, and then we'll go to, I think this is Wyatt, and then we'll go to Otter. Okay?
We were expecting to speak
As an entire group with the students? With the students is completely fine. I wanted to give space to elevate the student comments on their own, but if you have already prepared, I appreciate that. And we will give you 5 minutes to speak as an entire group with the students, okay? So we'll let you all come up in the way that you need to, and we'll put 5 minutes on the clock for speaking time, and we're ready to receive you whenever you are, okay?
Sure, yeah. We have some things to give you at the end because this may be hard to see. Okay,
Okay,
yes,
and that would be no problem. You'll just give them to Liz, and then she'll distribute them to us.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, school board. Thank you for your support of the Berkeley High tennis team getting new courts. We really appreciate it. We're here tonight representing the Berkeley High tennis community to explain how the current plan to build 4 courts next to the future CTE building is missing some important pieces. We'd like to present a practical win-win alternative solution that doesn't impact future construction or displace other sports teams. We call this solution the swap. What do we want to swap? Tennis courts and teacher parking. Our goal is to build 6 lit tennis courts on Milvia this summer and use street parking permits for teachers until permanent parking is built with the CTE project. So in this plan, 6 courts would be built now where the current parking lot is, and a parking lot would later be built where the 4 tennis courts are currently slated to go. In the meanwhile, teachers would park with parking permits. We want to underscore that with this plan, softball wouldn't relocate until the CTE project broke ground. So why are we asking for this? There are 4 reasons. For context, Berkeley High's tennis program has been without home courts for over 20 years. The current teacher parking lot that displaced the tennis courts was intended as a temporary solution. So one, we really want our old courts back. There's justice in this. Here is a picture of 1985, the courts from 1985, 6 courts there. Two, the most Bay Area high schools have 6 to 8 courts. So they can run JV and varsity programs and host competitions. The current proposal within the CTE project includes only 4 courts, which would significantly limit our program's ability to practice effectively, grow our teams, and host competitions. A competitive high school tennis program needs 6 courts. The average number of courts for each of the East Bay schools is 6.6. Here's Berkeley High. We currently have 0 home courts. 3, the current solution creates a clear access gap. Without home courts, our program has only been able to accommodate students with the means to learn the game elsewhere. 6 courts allows us to dramatically expand opportunities for students of all backgrounds and properly fulfill obligation to provide equal access to educational programs under Education Codes 220 and 260. 4, being entangled with a project involving multiple sports teams and construction plans that keeps getting kicked down the road as it changes and seeks more funding has the tennis community a bit of shaken faith that this next solution will actually happen. We hope that it does. But we'd like to solve our part of this now, which will simplify things by removing tennis from the equation later on. Can we get enough parking permits? That's what this hinges on. Yes. A May 2023 BUSD commissioned parking study shows that 380 parking spaces around Berkeley High remain unused during peak hours. The district has successfully implemented 80 permits, demonstrating that this approach works. A total of 240 permits, they say, are available. The parking lot on Milvia has 130 spaces, so there are enough permits available to more than cover this amount. So what does the swap get us? The swap gets us justice. The courts return to their original promised location. The swap gets us competitive, 6 courts, not 4, to match other schools in the area. The swap gets us equality, tennis for more students from different backgrounds. The swap gets us playing, courts by fall 2025 versus repeated delays. The swap aligns with the community. After our last meeting with the school board, where almost 30 students attended, we got a petition with 300 signatures supporting the restoration of courts on Milvia. People care about this. Playing tennis brings them joy. Now, we recognize that this will require a lot of coordination with multiple stakeholders, and we stand ready to help make this happen. We can assist with outreach to the city, teachers union, and any other stakeholders. We ask the board for 2 things tonight. 1, endorse the swap, and 2, refer us to the necessary stakeholders. After 20 years of waiting, 6 courts on Milvia isn't just a solution. It's coming home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And if you don't mind taking that and giving it to Liz, she'll make sure that is distributed to the board.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments and for being here this evening.
Thank you.
We will now move on to our student speakers. We will call on Linnea, followed by Linz or Lunis? Linus. Okay, thank you, Linus. We will grant this evening's speaking time to 2 minutes because we only have 3 other cards tonight, okay?
Okay.
After our student speakers.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Linnea Kalar. I go to Berkeley High. To be honest, I'm mostly talking because my advisors from YNG encouraged me to. But today, me and some of my other classmates in academic choice at Berkeley High chose our classes. While choosing, I noticed that a lot of people chose the AP English and AP History option because they want to take AP classes. Although there are a lot of other really cool options that don't just focus on American perspectives, like LGBTQ IPA plus literature, a lot of people don't take them, including myself, because they aren't as academically challenging as the APs. I think it would be much more incentivizing to learn about the other perspectives if there was an honors version or advanced version of those classes. I think that right now, while other people are decentivized to learn about unique perspectives, we should do our best to encourage students to take the opportunities to take classes like African American history and Asian Pacific Islanders Lit. Thank you.
Thank you as well. After Linus, we will receive Deborah Theus. You're going to be speaking during the BFT time? Okay, thank you.
Hello, school board. I am here for the same reason as Linnea. Today, I also chose my courses for junior year, and I was only made aware of it about yesterday, which is probably my fault, but I think there should probably be more awareness given to students about when they choose their courses for next year and what courses they will take next year, because I had to do some last minute looking at the course catalog, which was a little bit confusing, but I figured it out. So if like Juan Regoza could email me like a week before, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Thank you for your comments and your advocacy. Next, we will hear from Dan Bronson, followed by Diana Mullins.
Hello, I'm a worker with BCCE. I know the layoff notices just might mean you might be laid off, but given what I know about the financial situation of USD and the budget deficit, it does make it seem a bit more likely than less likely that many of our positions will be eliminated. While, you know, we're happy to endorse all of the sitting board directors in your elections, we would like you to be a little, I'm just speaking as myself, not on behalf of the union, but I was part of the committee that endorsed y'all. Getting laid off was not really what we had in mind. I have shared a few ideas with my supervisor already, so she's aware of what I'm about to say already, but I and another coworker have noticed that we are spending millions on contracts with staffing agencies. And I see the invoices for some of those. Some of them charge $55 an hour for each of the staff that they send to us. And I know from being a contractor, not in education, but in other industries before, that the person actually doing the work does not see 55 an hour. They see less than half of that, and the company is just skimming all of that off the top, robbing us blind. So please, before we lay anyone off, let's please end these contracts that are just hemorrhaging money.
Thank you. And finally, we'll hear from Diana Mullins.
Good evening. My name is Diana Mullins, and thank you all for showing up and for serving us. We really appreciate it, and for doing the hard things that you're doing right now. I'm a Craigmont parent, a PTA board member. I'm on the SSC, and I'm a commissioner on the Commission on the Study of Women. I share this with you so that you know that I'm here tonight because I also care, and I show up to advocate for our children every single day. I'm here to talk about safety, the safety of our children. I understand that the leadership of our aftercare program is being considered for cuts. It would never be considered to have the school go without a principal. So why would we do that to our aftercare program? It kills me. So we have 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and 6-year-olds being cared for by seasonal contractors. The only way that it's working is because of the senior leadership of the Learns program at Craigmont Elementary. That experience is Jasmine McCrory. She knows how to manage the unexpected to de-escalate issues to get strangers off of our unsecure land without incident. I ask you to find another way to meet your financial needs without sacrificing the safety of our babies. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well, Diana, for your comments. We will now move on to our Zoom commenters. We have 2 hands that are raised, and once they begin talking, our period for our online comment will end. And so we will begin with Lorona Custer, followed by Katie. Ms. Chavez, if you can please promote them both. Thank you. We also have an additional hand of Barbara Andrews, who will begin, or who will be our last public commenter speaker online. Welcome, Lorena. Whenever you are ready, you may begin.
Hello, my name is Lorona, and I'm writing on behalf of fellow parents and coworkers who are deeply concerned about recent decisions affecting our schools. It saddens me to see that the very people who make the differences in our children's lives every day are being let go. These are some of the staff members who support, guide, and care for our students, the ones who create a safe and nurturing environment for them. If the district truly values these children, why are they losing the people who matter most in these kids' daily experiences? What's even more troubling to me is that the district continues to hire executive directors when managers or supervisors could effectively handle the same responsibilities at a lower cost. At the same time, higher ups are asking for raises while employees who work directly with the students are being pushed out. It sends a painful message that leadership pay is more important than saving the jobs of those who dedicate themselves to our children every day. The USD is telling us through its actions that executive salaries take priority over the well-being of the staff and students. Have to do better. Please let's reconsider. Thank you.
Hi, can I cede my time to Amanda Cardno? I was just able to get on the call earlier.
Is it on now? Yes, you may, if Amanda Cardinal is online. Is she online, Ms. Chavez? If she is, you may cede your time to her online. And if you do not see her, okay, she is online. So we will promote her and thank you for ceding your time.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Amanda, you have 2 minutes. And then following Amanda will be our last comment from Barbara Andrews. Okay, can we try it one more time? Katie, just to let you know, Amanda has declined the invitation to be a panelist. And so we will try, we've tried it twice already. We'll try it one more time. However, if she declines the motion to be a speaker or participant, you have the option to reclaim your time, and that time will be 2 minutes. So let's try Amanda once more. Declined.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Amanda. Welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Please forgive me as I try and work this technology.
That's
Good
okay.
evening to the board and good evening to Heidi Weber. Our
Can you pause Amanda's time, please? Amanda, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but you cut out. And so if you'd like to begin again, and hopefully we will be able to hear you, okay?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, and so we'll start the time over for you, okay?
Thank you. Please let me know if it goes out again.
Absolutely. You may begin. Amanda, you went out again, and so here's what we will do. We'll give you a little bit of time so that you can get your tech together. We will go to the next public speaker, and then we'll circle back to you, okay? Hopefully you can hear me okay. Next, we will hear from Barbara Andrews, followed by Amanda Cartno.
Hi, my name is Barbara Andrews. I am a teacher at Berkeley Adult School, and I'm here this evening to talk about the Workforce Housing Project. I've heard many teachers and also classified staff express interest in living in the workforce housing, which will be at 1701 San Pablo. But it's come to my attention that the city also has its eyes on the workforce housing project. What I mean by that is it looks as though BUSD employees will not necessarily have full priority for living in that building. According to the city, households that fall between the 30% and 50% AMI group, 50 of the 110 units will be allotted for those families. I don't know that many people who work for BUSD will actually fall into that 30% to 50% AMI group. That really is cause for concern, in my opinion. Imagine we go to all the effort, we give up school property, we invest all this money, and then it's not entirely for BUSD employees. That makes me feel really sad and nervous. I hope that you as a board have your eyes on this and can be confident that the workforce housing will truly be for BUSD staff. Thank you.
And thank you as well for your comments, Barbara. We typically don't respond directly to public comment, but hopefully you will stay on for my comments and I'll give actually a response to that question. We received a message that Amanda Cardinal has now asked Katie to read her comments for her. So if you could please promote Katie, C-A-T-E-Y.
C-A-E-T-Y, actually. My parents are that weird. All right. This speech is very entirely on behalf of Amanda Cardno, so I'll be reading this. She wrote this. Good evening, board members. My name is Amanda Cardno, affectionately known to many of my students and colleagues as Miss C. I am calling on behalf of the BTA community and the larger secondary school community. I am a BUSD teacher, parent, and community member. I am also a graduate of the following BUSD schools: Oxford, Longfellow, and BHS class of 2007. As we move to practice the E's outlined in our title at Berkeley Unified School District, excellence, equity, engagement, and enrichment, I would like you to consider the following. I returned to Berkeley to work with and in my community. During my time as a special educator and community partner, I have worked with the most vulnerable students and predominantly students of color, like students at Berkeley Technology Academy. Yesterday, I coordinated a session with a student and their documented IEP counselor. This facilitation and collaboration of supports allows students with the highest needs to get much needed mental support when they are in crisis. They go to the people who they feel safe with. This student had the permission of myself, his counselor, and our principal to visit BHS for the purpose of attending a counseling session. After meeting with their IEP counselor, our BTA student was accosted by multiple safety officers. An argument ensued, and eventually multiple BPD officers were called for one student. This was a student in emotional crisis looking for help. They were met with aggression and a lack of de-escalation tactics. Their disability was ignored, and they, a child, were treated like a threat. The most vulnerable students, those with IEPs, documented emotional needs, mental illness, and medical illness, are treated as less than human and without regard to their health and wellness. BHS often treats our BTA students as trespassers. I understand that they attend different schools, but multiple BTA students are enrolled in BHS classes and vice versa. We have to have systems in place to ensure students can safely attend counseling sessions and feel like valued members of the BUSD community, not like trespassers. These actions at the hand of our community partners who are supposed to protect and serve. We need training and charges dropped for this particular BTA student, and we call for BTA students to be treated with respect and dignity. Structures need to be put in place to protect our students and build relationships. Please respond with immediate support and actions in these matters. In closing, please don't make cuts to BTA staffing. We've been cut down so much over the years, and please don't make cuts to after-school staffing. They are important. With frustration and collaboration in mind, Amanda Cardinal.
All right, thank you so much for reading that message. We will have a second opportunity for public comment for both of our attendees in person and online towards the end of our meeting. At this time, we will move on to our committee comments. Is there anyone who is here to make committee comments this evening? Okay. Seeing none, we will now move on to our union comments. We will begin with BFT, followed by BCCE, UBA, and Local 21 if there are commenters for those represented unions.
Oh, great. Okay. You guys ready? Hello, Superintendent Ford Marthel and the Berkeley School Board Directors. I am Matt Meyer, President of the Berkeley Federation of Teachers. We have submitted our sunshine document opening up this year's round of negotiations. The proposals you will see over the next couple of months support students and solve systemic problems in our district. They represent the schools our students deserve. Our proposals highlight the financial crisis that our public schools face. We believe that our schools should be fully staffed, that our educators should have competitive compensation in order to stay in this profession, and that our students need stable educators in their lives for success.
My name is Sarah Carver. I'm the BFT treasurer and a kindergarten teacher at Malcolm X. I am here to speak about fully funding our schools and educator positions. Berkeley needs to offer competitive salaries. Our district is not keeping up with surrounding districts. Mid-career teacher pay is 15th out of 17 nearby districts, and veteran teachers are paid the lowest in the county. Healthcare is not fully paid by our district, and costs are over $1,000 more for families compared to last year with the same amount of coverage. Teachers are also not compensated to do all the work that we do. We work with other specialists and service providers, often outside of our duty day, especially when students have IEPs, 504s, or unidentified additional needs. We're not talking about just 1 or 2 students per class. This year, I've needed to meet with specialists for over 1/3 of my kindergarten students, and I need to do so regularly. We need to be compensated for this extra work we do that is needed to meet our students' needs. When elementary teachers have a larger class size, each child deserves more time from their teacher to work with them, administer assessments, grade their work, as well as meet and communicate with their families. With more students, we need more time to meet those needs. Having an additional weekly prep when class sizes get too large will allow teachers to more properly support our students.
Good evening. My name is Yasmin Navarro. I'm a 5th-year counselor at Berkeley High School, and I'm shocked to see that there are 10 counselors receiving layoff notices. At a time when student needs for counseling is at an all-time high, this district is telling 10 of us that we should be looking for other work. This means students will be forced to change counselors. Counselors will need to start overbuilding relationships and trust while managing larger caseloads. Our counselors provide critical support to all students. If counseling caseloads go up as a result of such a huge loss, our ability to provide direct student support will decrease and our students' mental health will suffer.
My name is Deborah Thies, and I'm a preschool SPED educator. I'm here on behalf of the BUSD preschool teachers who agree that our ability to provide high-quality early education is hampered by class sizes of 24 with an 8-to-1 ratio. Before COVID, we could meet our students' needs with 24 per class because TK had not yet fundamentally changed our student demographic. Now it most definitely has. We no longer have 5-year-olds. We have many fewer 4s. We now enroll students as young as 2 years, 7 months rather than 3 years. Younger students have more needs, and we have lost many of the older students who served as role models, or at the very least, as students who can play and learn with greater independence, freeing educators to provide additional help to the younger children. No one expects teaching young children to be easy, but we all want to feel we are making a difference in providing a positive and nurturing preschool experience. Cap our classes at 18 students. Please do not lay off preschool teachers and instructional assistants. Thank you.
The Berkeley Unified School District has yet to put forth a comprehensive plan on meeting their budget reduction target. When the district is providing is a huge list of positions, including classroom teachers and support staff that will be receiving layoff notices. Many of these will be rescinded as funding is approved, but in the meantime, BUSD will lose some of these educators as they seek employment elsewhere. Many of these layoff notices are in positions that we already can't keep staffed. Some of these layoffs are for educators who our district has financially supported through a classified to certificated pipeline. At times of already increased anxiety in our public education universe, not knowing whether you will be employed or not will negatively impact staff morale and impact our ability to best serve students. We should not even be in this conversation while the district continues to fund private contractors. Rather than this massive layoff notice of our educators and staff at school sites, the district should have pushed up its decision-making timelines so that unnecessary pink slips could have been prevented. We look forward to the upcoming negotiation session where we will hopefully find common ground on staffing, compensation, and stability. Thank you.
Thank you as well for your comments. We will continue with union comments, and we are ready to receive union comments from BCCE at this time.
Good evening, Superintendent Ford McDowell and Berkeley School Board Directors. We are here tonight to express our concerns regarding the current situation within Berkeley Unified School District and the potential layoffs of nearly 150 classified employees represented by the BCCE bargaining unit. This news is deeply troubling and warrants immediate attention and reconsideration. Layoffs are about lack of funds or a lack of work, not a lack of personality or personal differences. This process must not be weaponized to push our employees out simply because they are an inconvenience. BCCE is deeply concerned, and we are putting this on record. Because some of the positions targeted for the cuts are not being eliminated due to financial constraints or a dwindling workload. Classified employees and their contributions are invaluable to the daily operations of our schools and the overall well-being of our students. To consider layoffs of this magnitude is to disregard their dedication and critical services they provide. The fact that BUSD is considering such drastic measures while simultaneously employing a growing number of contractors for roles that should be filled by BCCE bargaining unit members is deeply concerning. This practice undermines the job security of our classified staff and raises questions about the district commitment to its workforce. The consequences of laying off these dedicated workers would be devastating. Our students would undoubtedly suffer from a lack of support in essential services. Our schools would struggle to function effectively without a contribution of these classified employees, and our community as a whole would feel the ripple effects of these layoffs.
Our district has kept contractors on the payroll under the guise of hiring permanent staff. It's been over a year, and there is still no effort to replace these contractors with full-time employees. Now the district plans to eliminate behavior instructional specialist positions, even though the work remains essential and squarely falls within BCCE's responsibility. BUSD cannot continue to erode our bargaining unit for financial gain. Forcing other classified workers to absorb the duties of laid off positions is not a viable solution. It's a clear violation of labor law and an unfair labor practice. We urge the board to reconsider laying off classified employees. Instead, the district should consider cut back on long-term contractors who have overstayed their welcome. Reduce reliance on brokers that drain our funds, reevaluate the budget for textbook adoptions that never materialize, explore leasing district facilities to generate additional income, investigate new strategies to attract students and increases ADA. There are plenty of alternatives for BUSD to achieve savings without sacrificing the jobs of our classified employees. The after-school program, a case study in wasteful spending. BCCE leadership was told there would be 6 after-school coordinators. Stop and think about that. Why does this district suddenly need 6 coordinators to oversee a program that once ran efficiently with just 1 supervisor? If budget cuts are necessary, why are we adding expensive administrative layers instead of protecting frontline staff? The work that directly benefits our students is done by our after-school specialists. That is BCCE work, and we will not stand by while the district takes our jobs and repackages them with inflated salaries for unnecessary oversight. This is exactly what happens when inexperienced oversight operates without organizational clarity. Departments become unstable and essential programs suffer. Look around. Neighboring districts do not burden themselves with multiple after-school coordinators. In fact, one district just hired its first coordinator. So why is our district stacking administrative layers when we desperately need is more frontline workers? We need more direct services, not more supervisors. Let's be real. This district cannot afford to lose the people who are the bedrock of our schools. These frontline workers build a relationship with students, keep programs running, and ensure our schools function every day. If money is our priority, why is it trapped at the top rather than moving where it's needed most? To sustain the people who keep this district standing. Because the students are the foundation, cutting the very people who serve them is tantamount to dismantling the structure that holds our community together. We understand that tough financial choices must be made, but those cuts should never come at the expense of the employees who work directly with our students. If BUSD is serious about responsible budgeting, it must start at the top where there are more executive directors and administrative layers than ever before. Thank you.
Thank you as well for your comments. Are there any comments from Yuba or Local 21 tonight? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to our board member comments. I will begin. Thank you to those of you who spoke to us tonight in regards to the tennis courts, layoff notices, workforce housing, and systems in place to protect our students following the recent incidents this week. There are so many hot topic issues that are happening in our district. And again, it isn't our typical practice to respond to public comments, but there are a few that I want to respond to tonight. The very first is in regards to layoff notices. As already expressed by the superintendent, this is a practice that is done by most districts, and unfortunately, Berkeley Unified School District is not immune to the unsettling challenges that are brought forth by layoff notices. And for the first time in most recent BUSD history, our layoff notices are not just for what we've seen in the past for classified and our certificated employees, but there are layoffs that are happening at every single level in our layoff notices, that are happening at every single level in our organization. But I want to remind folks that this, once again, is a layoff notice. We are not finalizing any layoffs or making a decision, but we are providing notices because you all know that that is the practice. However, it is really, really important to note that in my time in BUSD, I've found that these layoff notices without proper engagement leads to our district being in a state of confusion, and it causes unnecessary stress and unnecessary strife within our community. And so what I have asked the superintendent and staff to do between now and May is give public presentations about their plans of actions, as well as engage with our labor partners. It has not been my experience that we've had these public presentations that help our community understand the decisions that are being made. It's my experience that these conversations normally happen with union partners behind closed doors, but because we are moving into the season of transparency, it is very important to me that we have these conversations in public, and that the board have the opportunity to engage publicly, advocate publicly, and ask questions about some of these layoff notices that have been given out. And so, although, again, it is unsettling to receive these notices, it is my hope that this new practice that we will implement help us to come to some resolve together as a community instead of dealing with these challenges in silos. So hopefully that will help our district move forward and be able to be on one accord by the time we get to May. In addition to that, earlier, there was a comment, I believe, from Barbara about our workforce housing plans. And I want to let the community in on what's happening. And so for our workforce housing plans, we actually received some Measure O money from the city to be able to provide workforce housing to our educators. However, for the first time in what I believe is Berkeley history, there is a special ordinance that comes with that Measure O money that says that that money for that must be open to a specific subgroup, which is what Barbara spoke to earlier. Her comment also shared that she wasn't sure how many of our BUSD teachers or educators met or followed under that criteria, which is true. However, we are in conversations right now with the city, our city manager, as well as our director of facilities is in conversations right now with our city manager so that we can come to some sort of understanding, especially because we want to ensure that workforce housing for our educators is for our educators. There's been a lot of work, there's been a lot of advocacy, there's been years of work to make sure that this is something that happens for our educators, and we want to ensure that we have it and hold it for our educators, which was the purpose. And so we are aware of that, Barbara, and everyone else who may have those concerns, and we are working to see a resolve. Additionally, we are asking that it is required by the City Council to take action on this. This should not just be something that the city tells us is going to happen. We need to take action on this by our City Council. We need our City Council members to take action on this. And so I have asked that all of our school board directors engage with our City Council partners, and I'm asking that everyone here in our community, educators, community members, students, families alike, to please push on our City Council members to ensure that we hold that workforce housing that we've been working so hard to develop for our educators. It has a specific purpose, and we don't want any of the work that is done to go in vain. So please, please, please push on your City Council representatives to make sure that we hold the workforce housing for those who it was intended for, and that the City Council is the group that actually takes action on it instead of just hearing the city tell us what it is that they feel that we should do just because we receive Measure O funds. Okay, so I hope that clears that up for everyone, and I hope everyone leaves here with the charge to know that we are going to call on our City Council members to take action and take action in the right way. Okay. Finally, I will end my public comments with saying a huge thank you to Heidi Weber for all that you have done for our district. Heidi, you are an amazing force. One thing that I'm always inspired by when I have conversations with you is how passionate you are about your students, how passionate you are about the educators that you have the privilege to work with, and how much you love our school district. Every conversation I've ever had with you has been positive. It has helped me in my own personal craft, and your spirit is infectious. You always greet us with a hug, something positive to say, and so much love to give. And although our superintendent is just a smidge older than 31, when you got here, I was only 2 years old and not yet in the district. But I do remember being a student in the district when you were working at Berkeley High School, and I have always been moved and touched by who you are as an educator. And I know that you are leaving us for a short while, I hope, but know that wherever you go, please keep that wonderful and infectious spirit, because that spirit helps to motivate people in ways you have no idea that you are doing so. And so you always, as the superintendent mentioned, will be a part of our Berkeley community, and you always have a home right here in Berkeley. So please know that we love you, we appreciate you, and we'll always hold you in our hearts. So thank you for all that you've done. And I did say finally, but I want to call your attention to one more thing. I was going to do it when we got to the consent calendar, but I'll go ahead and do it now so that when we do get to the consent calendar, we can move through that vote pretty quickly. There have been a couple of people who have raised questions about item 12.5 that is on the consent calendar, especially during this season of receiving layoff notices. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what that is and why this is the practice. So as some of you may know, the district has concluded our bargaining with BFT, BCCE, and Local 21 with respect to salary and related stipends, differentials, and hourly rates. In addition to that, the board ratified these increases for our bargaining units and received a staff recommendation for a 2% increase for our directors, cabinet members, confidential, hourly, and stipend only position. So just about every person in our district, which is something that we all should be very proud of, especially in the day and age of how expensive it is to live in California and how expensive it continues to get to live in the Bay Area. However, and this includes the superintendent, okay? But there is a clause in the superintendent's contract that says that any increase has to have a board decision and a board vote, and it must be done publicly. She is the only employee in our district where we have to do this publicly, and so that is why you see it on the consent calendar. Everyone else who has received an increase, you know nothing about, because it is not in their contract for us to have to do that publicly. But for the superintendent, it is. And so you will see that on our agenda tonight as item 12.5. So anyone else who has questions may absolutely refer those questions to me. They may replay this comment when they see it on YouTube, and they also may go to you who have heard it publicly. If there are any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me in regards to this item, but this is a process that we do, and this is a process that I wrote into our contract for our superintendent, that this should happen publicly. And so it is happening publicly tonight. Thank you so much for hearing all of my comments this evening and for the opportunity to kind of respond to some of the things that our district needs to address publicly that we don't always address publicly. So again, we are moving into the season of transparency, and hopefully this transparency doesn't fall on deaf ears, but that it falls on the ears of those who are ready to continue to do the work so that we can move together in unity. Are there any other board commenters who are ready to go at this time? Are students ready? You are? Okay. Are you ready? All right. We will start with our student board director. So we'll go this way, Winter, if you're ready to go. And then after that, we will go to Director Shinosky, Director Korn, and then Director Cheng. Will you be ready? And Director Vasudev. Wonderful. So as soon as a director is done speaking, I won't need to call on you. Director Corn, I won't need to call on you. So as soon as a director is done speaking, you just may go ahead and start, okay? She will. We're going to start with I'm going to say it one more time so that everybody gets it. We're going to start with our student directors first. As soon as our student directors are done, Director Shinosky will just jump straight in. As soon as she's done, Director Korn, you will jump straight in. As soon as you are done, Director Chang will jump straight in. And then finally, we will end our comments with Director Vasudev. I will not call on you all individually. I'll just allow you to go so that we can save some of our time. You may begin whenever you're ready, Student Director Clark.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's great to be back for another board meeting, and I truly appreciate hearing from all of you during public comment. It was a happy surprise to see my fellow youth and government delegates speak tonight. And before diving into my main topic, I want to take a moment to highlight some of the great things that are happening at our school. I would also like to extend my gratitude to Ms. Weber, which teachers like her are the heart of our school community and the type of people that make a lasting impact on students' experiences. So thank you so much. So last week, Berkeley High hosted the Black Scholar Ceremony where we celebrated Black students for their academic excellence. And it was a really beautiful event that highlighted the hard work and dedication of so many of our students. And also, prom season is officially here with tickets now on sale, something I know a lot of my fellow classmates need to start getting on top of. And of course, it's now Women's History Month, a time to celebrate the resilience, leadership, and contributions of women. Sitting here, not just on this dais, but in this room, I feel incredibly grateful to be surrounded by such amazing, hardworking women who are dedicated day in and out towards making our schools better and go above and beyond in our roles. So thank you to all the women here. But on another note, I want to be transparent with you all. Instead of focusing on student awards and prom seasons, the student body is talking about the fact that over the past 2 weeks, 3 students have been arrested on campus due to actions taken by our school resource officer. From what we know about these incidents, his actions directly violated Board Policy 5145.11 and were carried out without proper communication with school administration. In most cases, parents were not notified until it was too late. This policy was put in place to ensure that law enforcement interactions with students are handled in a way that is fair, trauma-informed, and minimizes disruption to the school environment. It requires that, 1, law enforcement must coordinate with school administrators before questioning or apprehending a student. 2, parents must be contacted, emphasis on the must, immediately, except in cases of suspected child abuse. And 3, officers should take every step to avoid unnecessary harm, stigma, or distress to students. But this, in fact, did not happen. Instead, we watched policy violations that led to unnecessary and damaging encounters with law enforcement. And as a student representative, I have a firm belief our school should be a place of safety and learning, not fear. We need real accountability to make sure this does not happen again. And so moving forward, I want to ensure that we uphold our commitment to student safety and hold all parties accountable when policies are violated. Students deserve to feel protected by the very policies meant to safeguard them. This issue cannot be ignored, and I look forward to working with my fellow board members, administrators, and students to make sure our schools remain a place where students feel safe, respected, and heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment, Director Clark, and I apologize for butting in because I put it in my notes to respond to that issue this evening and didn't get the chance to. The policy that student Clark spoke to just a few minutes ago was actually a policy that we passed on the policy committee when myself and former Director Laura Babbitt were on that policy committee. But the reason why the policy is so important is because that policy was brought forth by a student, Sir Remington. And the student was really impacted by something that he saw happened on campus, which was similar to what happened this weekend. So we created, with the support and help of Yasmina, created that policy to ensure that that would never happen to any other students on our campuses. Unfortunately, multiple times it has happened in the last couple of days. And it is actually not okay at all. It is really unfortunate. It's horrible for our students to not just witness, but for our students to experience. experience. We pride ourselves on being a school where all of our students are welcome, where they are safe, and where they have belonging. But students cannot feel safe if we are breaking policies, and it is absolutely not okay. And so I would like to take the time to appreciate our superintendent and Principal Regoza, who will be meeting with Chief Lewis to discuss this and to come up with a plan of action to ensure that this never happens to any of our students again. So thank you, Director Clark, for your advocacy and for speaking on behalf of not just students at Berkeley High, but students at BTA and all of our students in BUSD who deserve to feel welcome, who deserve to feel a sense of belonging, but above all, who deserve to feel safe. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, and I am here to speak on behalf of Leisha Casillas, our other school board member who unfortunately couldn't make it today. There has been many times where BTA students has been treated unfairly by BHS staffs just because they go to BIS or BTA. Some students has told me that they were accused of trespassing, even though they were at BHS for the classes. But what happened yesterday is really disturbing. A BTA student who has special needs was arrested for trespassing just for being on BHS campus, even though they were given permission to be there by a BTA staff member along with a BHS staff member. It's hard to understand why a student would be arrested for something like this. The actions taken against this student were wrong and unfair. Safety officers are supposed to help calm down situations, but in this case, it seems like they made things worse. My question is, how can we make sure situations like this are handled with more care and kindness instead of making things harder for students?
Thank you so much. First of all, Principal Weber, Heidi, I want to thank you for your service to Berkeley Unified. I appreciate you so much for the love that you unabashedly show every one of our students. Standing with you at graduations and ceremonies is such a privilege because your pride and your joy for our students is truly obvious and infectious. So thank you. Thank you for helping to educate me as a board member. Thank you for supporting my own child. And thank you for supporting so many others. So I want to do one more round of applause for Principal Weber. I want to comment on the March 15 notices. It's really painful to vote on these notices. It's painful to read them, to see them, and to vote on them. At the same time, there's a very real and very pressing need for us to manage the decrease in funding that we, along with neighboring districts, and really all districts across California, are facing right now, and the uncertainty that we have with federal funding. Our budget is, however, a reflection of our values, and any cuts must really be done in service of those values. They need to be made as far away from our students and classrooms as possible, in my opinion. And I look forward to continued engagement with our community through SBAC and through discussions here on the dais so that we can minimize cuts. We can show our commitment to the staff that has committed to us and continue to serve all BUSD students. I highly encourage any and all of you to join us both at SBAC and here at our board meetings, virtually or in person, so that you can continue to ask questions and get really important updates. We do dig in, the district is digging in and is quite responsive when we have concerns. So those are really the places to come. In talking about funding, I want to come back to March Madness and attendance. Attendance is not just for March. Our attendance matters for the students who are missing out on class. It also matters for the peers, for their peers who, are often left behind in classes as kids are getting brought up to speed. And it matters for our funding because we receive state dollars based on our average daily attendance. So make sure that your kids are in school and make sure that your kids' friends are in school. And I think attendance just needs to be a high priority for all of us, not just in March, but all year long. Quick updates on some meetings. I've had the privilege of continuing to partner with Student Board Director Winta Clark on youth voting. I'm really thankful to the Berkeley High administration for embracing voter registration and Winta's continued commitment to see it through all the way through to graduation. I also attended in the last couple of weeks both the Berkeley High School and district-wide safety committee meetings. And at those meetings, there's been a lot of discussion about the homeless encampment at Civic Center Park. It was also the topic of a city-planned community meeting sponsored last week. I want to clarify for the public that the school district does not have jurisdiction over Civic Center Park, and we were not involved in the planning of the community meeting last week. I'd like to thank the city for their commitment to increased patrolling around Berkeley High School, even though the individual involved in the reported sexual battery case was not a member of that unhoused community. Last week, I had the privilege of attending the Longfellow PTA meeting with Principal Mitchell and Superintendent Ford Morthell. It was a really productive meeting where our superintendent provided updates on Longfellow, both the Sacramento and San Pablo locations, as well as some updates on workforce housing. I stayed behind to talk to some safe routes to school families about their concerns with rolling drop-off and walking and biking to school. And I want to thank those families for their engagement and their positive approach to finding solutions to some really challenging problems. Yesterday, I was able to attend the Finance Audit Committee and the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee meetings. And I want to thank those have community volunteers that serve on both of those committees. And I'd like to thank those community members who always come prepared and ask great questions and make us all much better at our jobs. I also want to thank the Berkeley voters once again, who have so generously approved so many different funding streams that we have in Berkeley. And finally, to the students that talked about more rigorous options at Berkeley High and the need for more AP courses, I would highly encourage you to look at dual enrollment opportunities at your nearby community colleges, because at your nearby community colleges, you can take a more rigorous course and get college credits and save your parents some money. Okay, and with that, I will turn it over to the other Jen.
Good advice, Director Shanowski. My own son is taking 2 classes at Berkeley City College right now, getting college credit and taking care of his last credit so that he can graduate from Berkeley High. Highly recommend. Thank you, everyone. I missed the last meeting because I was out of the country, but I am very happy to be back this evening to work with my colleagues to conduct the district's business. I want to say that I am so grateful for our student directors on the board, and your comments tonight were such a good reminder of why we need student voice in this room. I too am alarmed by the recent events involving law enforcement at Berkeley High School that are counter to our district policy, and I am grateful that the superintendent and Principal Rigoso will be meeting with the police chief to ensure student safety at school. I also want to add my personal gratitude to Heidi Weber, although I will say that President Brown's comments made me feel super old, because while President Brown was a toddler, Heidi Weber and I were young teachers together in BUSD. I had the honor of working with Heidi many years ago when we were both supporting English language learner students in BUSD. And she is now my son's principal at BIS. And I just want to echo what everyone has said about how dearly missed you will be, Heidi. I am also grateful to everyone who came out tonight to share your perspectives in public comment, and I'm particularly grateful always to students who come out to speak. And I want to just end by also addressing the March 15th notices. And I just want to say that none of us want to lay off employees. I am a lifelong educator myself. I've worked as an after-school program director, a classroom teacher, a teacher on special assignment, and a site administrator. And I know firsthand, and I deeply appreciate the hard work that each of these positions requires. And I'm deeply grateful to every one of BUSD's hardworking employees. I myself have received March 15th letters many times, and I have great empathy for the uncertainty and the stress that these notices cause. And I want to reiterate that our vote tonight is only to provide notice to employees that it is possible that they might be laid off or reassigned. And I just want to reiterate what's already been said many times, that no decisions have been made yet. Final staffing decisions will depend on many budgetary factors that are not yet fully clear and decisions that are yet to be made. And I look forward to a transparent process this spring that will prioritize services to students and minimize cuts as much as possible. I believe that we can work together as a community to get through these really challenging budgetary times. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My colleagues have spoken so eloquently on these issues. I want to say good evening to everybody and thank you for providing your hearts and minds again. I emphasize and support President Brown's call for the season of transparency, both on staffing and our engagements with the city. Engagements with the city on safety and law enforcement in particular. I also want to emphasize and support student directors Clark, Tabbitt, and Jochoa's call out that all students should be able to attend programs and services without escalated law enforcement outcomes. I encourage you to reach out to Berkeley's Police Accountability Board, which is our police oversight body, to ensure that the Berkeley Police Department's school resource officers are properly selected and trained. Please reach out to them through public comment, et cetera. They have meetings just like we do. Thank you, Principal Weber, for your decades of service to our district. I really enjoyed our chats sitting next to each other on the podium during high school graduations. So again, I want to do another clap for you. Thank you so much. Decades of work. And we hope you have some adventures in the future. I heard from our chats that you're doing some very interesting stuff. BHS Tennis, thanks for continuing to remind us that you need an appropriate home. I'm going to make a corny dad joke here. For a minute, I thought that you had convinced David Letterman to speak on your behalf. That's pretty cool. A funny and handsome looking guy. Thank you, student speakers on course selections at BHS. BCC and BFT members, thank you for reminding us of the important value of the work that you do holding up the district and full staffing, compensation, and stability. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much. And I know we're going through a time of a lot of tumult, both nationally and locally. And I know that this board is very conscientious and has been said here. We do not at all take lightly these letters, the pink slips, as they're called, that are sent out. We're engaging very closely with the administrators here and ourselves in sessions to make sure that we look at everything very closely, and it's all done through an empathy for the great work that everybody in this district does in holding up the district. So thank you again for all of
Thanks, Director Chang. One of the benefits of going last is that you can just say, I echo a lot of the sentiments stated by my colleagues, which is absolutely true today. And also wanted just to give another thank you to our students. As I've said many times from the dais, we're here to serve them. We do this work for you. And so when adults are failing on campus, like the SRO in this situation, it's really important that you I know it's very hard because of the power dynamics to speak out in these situations, but it's really important that you do speak out to the board directors and help us make sure that we are, holding staff accountable for making sure that we're serving you to the best of our ability. So thank you both. And I also look forward to hearing how those conversations with our police chief go. And I know that our superintendent is on top of that. I also just wanted to echo what my colleague Jen Korn said about looking forward to the transparent budgeting process. This is a really hard time. It's not fun to approve these layoff notices, but I think that the transparency throughout the budgeting process becomes very important. And so, I'm in talks with the superintendent, as are my colleagues, to make sure that as we make these difficult decisions, the public is aware of how we got there. So I think that's very important. I had the pleasure of attending the Caminos de la Universidad College and Career Readiness event on the 22nd of February. We had over 100 Spanish-speaking families at that event at BCC. Very grateful to our community colleges for opening up their space. It was a beautiful event. And, we had sessions on, applying for financial aid. At a time when a lot of families are very scared of, filling out a FAFSA form because it means outing their immigration status. And so we had those kind of nuanced conversations. It was also great to hear from our Puente students directly, our students who are taking part in the early academic outreach program from UC Berkeley, which is also at BHS, from our different nonprofit partners, and all these great programs to help close the opportunity gap for our Latinx students and our immigrant students. But in spite of all the positivity of that event, it was very heavy to feel some of the fears that families have around navigating the college process, given the federal political situation and landscape, and just fears that they have about if their students are going to be safe should there be a raid. And so I really appreciate Student Director Winter Clark and our BHS students who were there passing out red cards to the families so that they were aware of their immigration rights. Thank you for doing that. And all our nonprofit partners that were there to answer some of those questions for our families as well. I also wanted to thank everyone who came out to give public comment, to the tennis team. I'm no fan of parking, so I am, as a city planner, I'm always going to prioritize using those spaces for something else. I know that I was in conversations with one of the coaches about staggering practices to making sure that the lighting was great, so you could have a JV practice, even if you had to do a practice later when it was dark, to make sure that the lighting was great in the new fields, the new courts. So I know there's creative solutions. I know the superintendent, and I'll be talking to Director of Facilities, John Calise, to make sure that we can explore the ideas that you presented to us tonight. So thank you very much for being here. And I also wanted to give my thanks to Principal Weber, who took the time early in my first term to meet with me when I ran on a platform that I wanted to make sure the district updated the multilingual learner master plan. And it was Principal Weber who met with me early during that time and said, well, this is all you can do to update this beast of a plan. And so I really appreciate that meeting. I have learned so much from you, and also just opening your camp. I'll never forget how you opened your campus for our MLP graduation during the pandemic when we had just come back to school. And I know that we were looking for a space for that graduation. It was really beautiful, and thank you for opening your campus and always making sure that our vulnerable students felt heard and celebrated, and for all your work with our multilingual learners. Thank you, and with all our students. Thank you so much. And I'd also like to thank our labor partners for their comments. And that's it for me tonight. Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you so much, Director Vasudev, and thank you for all of your comments, directors. We will now move on to our consent calendar. Hopefully you all heard and understood what I said in regards to item 12.5. And if there aren't any other questions, can I please have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move.
Moved by Director Shanatsky. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Chang. All directors who would like to vote in favor, please signify with the sign of aye.
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 Okay, opposers have the same sign. Abstentions? The ayes have it and the motion carries. At this time, it is almost 9 p.m. and so we will take a 5-minute break to excuse our student directors and to prepare for our one agenda item, our action item tonight. So we will take a 5-minute recess and we will come back to receive our presentation.
Yeah. So Jen has to sign it and where are these people going at 9 o'clock? You have walked over. How do you want to introduce this? I always say a bond drawdown, but how do you want to technically?
Say the issuance of
Issuance of geo bonds,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
That works.
Daniel is gonna be.
Yeah. Well, thanks for giving us the opportunity to present.
Yeah.
John said it to me with the before.
With, about the drawdown?
Right, about any geo bond issuances?
No.
Okay,
No.
okay.
I think you know what, we usually just had it on consent. We never had a creditor because it's such a large issue.
I think it's because it's such a large issuance. So has made a change in bond council, and
Yeah.
I think they feel more comfortable
Right.
with it being a
Right.
action item versus a consent item. So I have to ask, is this a picture of
No, this is
home or anything? I mean, it's beautiful.
No, it's just a stock picture.
Oh, well, gorgeous photo. So how have you been?
Oh, God. I heard the.
Yeah, it's
Hard. It's a very difficult time, so.
Yeah.
But gotta do it.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Not as bad as some districts, but pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, I think you kind of warned us about that before we started this.
Yeah, but there are some of the things that we're concerned about. I'm meeting with the county tomorrow, but we're okay for now. So
Okay.
it's,
Second,
it's hot? It's hot?
they're on.
Okay.
Can we turn them?
It's always on, okay. Going to the board next, it would have come tonight, but the county said we could send it to them on the 15th and then bring it to the next board meeting.
Yeah, because that might need help. Reading presentation.
Yeah.
Those updated numbers.
Yeah. I don't know if they're gonna do it, but.
Oh, no, that's okay.
We have to go in.
Yeah. Nice, I like it.
Liz, you have the,
It's just me.
you don't have the thing to change, so you're gonna change slides, so Daniel, you just tell them when you want it, the
Perfect.
slides changed.
I told everyone. No. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I have a thing for shoes.
Right.
The problem is that in COVID, it's so hard to find anything cute, even cute shoes. And then when you try to find something, you have to buy it in 4 different sizes. It's nothing.
So I'm gonna introduce you and, yeah, we're gonna talk about the issue on the other. And I have one of those, somebody in my office was talking and was in my office.
Oh, jeez. It seems to really be going around because there's. I try to keep it fresh for you guys. Yes.
We don't have.
It was well planned then. Good. we're just gonna go ahead and build on that then.
So I like to be standing on everything. All right.
All right, so we are getting ready to begin again. Thank you, board directors, for returning. As a reminder, our student board directors have been dismissed, and they are dismissed every evening at or around 9 p.m. At this time, we will move on to our first action item of the evening, which is the approval of the bond drawdown. As many of you know, in 2020, voters of the district approved Measure G, authorizing the district to issue up to $380 million in principal amount bonds for authorized projects. And so tonight, we are going to hear an update and hear a recommendation that the Board of Education approve the resolutions that you will see come for us tonight and authorize the district officers and staff to take the necessary steps to complete our financing. And so at this time, I will turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Pauline Follensby.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thanks, President Brown. So as President Brown indicates, we're going to be discussing issuing $150 million of bonds. And with me tonight is Danielle from KNN, our advisors, and she's going to actually be doing the presentation. So welcome, Danielle. And go
Thank
ahead.
you very much.
Sure.
Good evening, President Brown, other members. Oh,
Yeah.
that better?
It's on, it's on.
How about that? Okay. All right, well then I will begin again. Good evening, President Brown and other members of the board. Good evening to Superintendent Ford Marthel. It's wonderful to be with you here. And as Pauline has already provided a little brief intro, my name is Danielle Aruda. I am with KNN Public Finance. We serve as the district's municipal advisor. And if I could distill what I do in just a short phrase, it's to protect the interest of the district as it goes through the bond issuance process. So that is what we're here to do today. The presentation that has been placed before you is to provide some additional context to the various documents that are before you so that board members who are veterans will find this presentation as a nice refresher. And for those board members who may be a little bit new to the process, it provides them with the opportunity to really dig down, understand what these various documents are, what the GEO bond program is at BUSD, and gives you the opportunity to ask any questions. So I find that these presentations go really well if it is open. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to interrupt me. I'm happy to answer any questions as we go through. Okay. So
To that end, let's go ahead and begin with slide number 2 here, and it is entitled Measure G Background. So the reason and importance for this slide is to really understand what sort of revenue sources are available to the district as it needs to support a capital program. Okay, so in the state of California, school districts have 3 resources that it can call upon. Number 1, local bonds issued by the school district, so general obligation bonds. 2, developer fees. And then finally, 3, state funding that's usually done on a match basis. There's also opportunities through grants, endowments, or even gifts that are provided by alumni or friends of the district. So we're going to focus on what's closest to home, which is the GEO bond program, okay? So you'll see that this is entitled Measure G. And as President Brown had mentioned, yes, the district has had a successful engagement with its community on 4 separate GEO bond measures. So Measure A, AA, I, and G. The reason that we're focusing on G is because G is the only active authorization, meaning it's the only authorization that still has dollars that can be deployed for future projects. The rest of the authorizations, have been completely exhausted. So in March of 2020, the district's constituents went ahead and approved a authorization of $380 million. What that means is that's $380 million that will go towards capital projects at the district. This was a Proposition 39 election, which means that it only required 55% approval rating by its constituents. Your constituents showed up in a real big way with 80.5%. And I know that there was already some kudos that was given about the generosity of its taxpayers and its constituents. What I want to underscore is that it really shows the value that the constituents have in BUSD and to reinvest in the school district to make sure that it has the facilities as well as the tools necessary to support positive educational outcomes for its students. So moving on, since the passage of Measure G, there has been 4 separate GEO bond issuances, and each of those issuances are noted below in the table. The first taking place in November of 2020, and then most recently in August of 2024. In aggregate, all 4 issuances total $147.5 million. So if we take the original authorization amount of $380, deduct what has already been issued, that gives the district $232.5 million in remaining authorization. I know that Assistant Superintendent Khaleesi in February provided this board with an update on the various capital programs, or capital projects that are taking place. There's, I believe, 10 different projects. So to support those efforts, we are considering looking at an additional issuance of GEO bonds for Measure G so that the district has those funds to deploy when needed and to continue the progress that it is going through, okay? Moving on to our next slide, slide 3, tax base and assessed value. The importance of this slide is that the assessed value is the key marker in actually calculating what the impact is on the tax rate or what our taxpayers are going to be paying to support future Measure G debt service, okay? So we'll go ahead and take a look at the chart on the top right. And I realize there's a lot going on here, so let's walk through it. We can see here that we are listing the assessed value from fiscal 2008-9 all the way to current. And what I want to point out here is not in any year that's listed here do we see a situation in which assessed value is negative. That is huge. It speaks to the resilience and strength of the overall tax base. There are many, many school districts who do not have this sort of strong tax base to support their GEO bond programs. The reason that I felt it necessary to go back as far as I did is, as we all know, the Great Recession caused a lot of dislocation in the real estate market. And so there were plenty of school districts that saw multiple years of negative growth and a contraction in their tax base. When your tax base value goes down, your tax rate goes up, and vice versa. When your tax value or the value of your tax base goes up, your tax rate goes down. Okay, so we can see here that the district has enjoyed very healthy growth. The chart that's directly below this first chart we are looking at and is entitled Compound Annual Growth Rate really distills all of those various numbers and growth rates to show various growth rates at certain years. So we see in very short term, 3, 5, 10 year, very strong growth. 8, 7, 7. It speaks to the fact that there is a lot of turnover and reevaluation of the district's tax base. Then when we look 15, 20 years out, where we're looking at including those years in which the Great Recession had an impact on the value of the tax base, again, still very strong AV numbers at over 5%. So the question for the board is why is it that the tax base in BUSD is so resilient? And there's a number of reasons for that. One, the city of Berkeley is one of the oldest cities in California. But what I like to attribute it to is that you guys are an urban suburban. So you guys have amenities that speak to growing families. There's space to have kids. There are close resources for these kids. Kids are able to walk to school. Many cities within your neighboring vicinities do not have those sorts of amenities. Plus, there's the opportunity for parents, as we saw tonight, to take part in a very active and vibrant community, which people really appreciate having the ability to have a say in how and what their kids learn. Okay. There's also the urban amenities that are unique to the city of Berkeley. Obviously, your neighbor not too far, UC Berkeley, provides a lot of resources and attention. Additionally, Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. There is a sphere of innovation as well as research here in the city of Berkeley. And what has resulted in it is that it's an attraction for employers and employees. There is well-paying jobs that are in the area as well as well-compensated and a very well-educated workforce that's here. So that is what's really causing the demand and the stability in that tax base. When we look to see how the tax base is actually made up, 83% of the value is coming from residential property owners. And of that 83%, 50% of it, about 50% of it is single-family residents. And then 29% of it is multifamily. So going back to that urban suburban, right? Having the ability to have multifamily homes and seeing the value that it provides for various families at different economic levels, okay? I also want to go ahead and talk about the concentration or lack thereof, really, of the top 10 secured property tax owners. So we've all heard that age-long saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? So the same is true for the assessed value. There isn't any one property owner that is making up a large portion of the district's assessed value. So it is well diversified among many property holders. In fact, the top 10 property holders that make up the largest portion of your secured tax roll only account for 5.9% of the roll, which in our eyes means that it is very diverse and it isn't concentrated. Okay. I'll go ahead and pause there because I've said a lot so far and see if there's any questions. Excellent. All right, let's keep going. Slide 4. These next 2 slides are really going to speak to what the actual cost is to the property tax owner. So we will start with a very focused view on just Measure G. And then obviously, as I said before, there are other outstanding GO bonds. So we will widen our scope to look at the other GO bonds that are outstanding as well as the parcel tax measures. So let's stick with Measure G here to really understand what the cost is to the taxpayer. At the time that Measure G was approved by the constituents, in the ballot language, it provided constituents with a estimate of what the cost would be to repay the outstanding bonds for Measure G. And that was a tax rate of $44.50 per 100,000 of AV. That is an average tax rate. So what that means is the tax rate on the very first assessment roll all the way through to the final maturity, the average tax rate being $44.50. In addition, there was a second estimate that was provided to taxpayers, which was what is going to be the max tax rate to be levied to support this GO bond program. And that was $59 per 100,000 of AV. So the question is how have we been doing since our first issuance in November of 2020? The bars directly below show what the tax rate has been. This is, again, sourced by the county. This is what the taxpayers are seeing on their tax bills. So assessment year 21-22, when we first issued Series A and B for Measure G, tax rate was $52.43. Then purposefully, we went ahead and backed down the tax rate in order to provide the district with plenty of capacity for future debt to be layered in, which took place just this past August. And you could see 24-25, that tax rate jumping up to $15.74 to account for Series C and D. So what does this show us? Over the 4 fiscal years in which the district has levied a tax for the repayment of Measure G, the average tax rate has been $19.37. And each of those 4 years, the tax rate has been well below the $59 threshold. So that provides some context based off of a tax rate. But what does that tax rate really translate to in terms of dollars and cents for the taxpayers? So we're going to go to the next page, or the next slide, excuse me. In impact on the taxpayers. The first graphic, and I apologize that it is so small, but there's, again, a lot of information that I wanted to include here for you. But that is an actual screenshot of a tax bill for a taxpayer within the districts. So the first portion, we'll go ahead and look at the bottom right, which that indicates the total tax that is levied for the repayment of all GO bonds for BUSD. That includes Measure A, AA, I, G, and any refundings. The tax rate for 24-25 is $78 per 100,000 of AV. So let's translate that tax rate into real dollars. Okay, I went ahead and did an analysis to take a look at what the median AV is here in BUSD, and based off of the statistical data available, we're looking at a median AV of $647,200. So we take that dollar amount for AV, okay, divide it by 100,000, and then multiply it by the $78 tax rate. For this particular circumstance, based off this median AV, the taxpayer would be paying $504.82 this year to support the repayment of all BUSD outstanding debt. The district also has the benefit of the parcel tax measures that are deployed for various items that the community has valued. And so what we have there is in the next column over, when we're looking at the tax bill, again, 3 line items to account for BSEP, BERA, and Measure H. I want to thank Kathy Fleming and her team for their assistance with this information. She was able to provide me with the tax rates for each of the parcel taxes given 24-25, but obviously I saw on the consent calendar that you just went ahead and approved 25-26. So we'll stick with what we got here. We also went ahead and received data for the average square footage for a single family resident. This was provided by the city of Berkeley. So the average square footage being 1,971. When we take the various parcel tax measure tax rates and apply it to that square footage, we get a total cost of $1,403.96. So all in, we're looking at $1,908.80 that this, I guess, case study, we will say, based off of medians and averages avails us. So real dollars behind what those tax rates translate to. Any questions? Okay. So moving on to slide 6, plan of finance. As I said before, this presentation is to provide context to the documents that are before you. The plan of finance is basically the terms of the financing or the transaction that we are planning to go forward with once the board has granted their approval. So as I said before, the district is anticipating $150 million to be issued. That will be split across 2 series of bonds, which has been the practice since we began the Measure G issuances. There is Series E. We could see that the total par or principal amount there at 2.5 million, and then Series F for 147.5 million. Some might be asking why. Traditionally, we have put a small series to go ahead and finance technology-related projects. So what we want to make sure is we all know that technology has a very short span. So rather than financing technology on a 30-year basis, we're instead going to do what's best for the taxpayer and only finance it for a short period of time. For Series E, we're planning on a final maturity of February 1 of 2026, so less than a year. Moving on to Series F, where the bulk of the authorization will be issued from. That series is really intended for brick and mortar and other sort of projects that have longer lifespans. Okay, so these are the projects that are going to be benefiting generation after generation of BUSD students. We are using very conservative assumptions to go ahead and structure this debt. First and foremost, I want to bring to your attention the note that these are fixed rate, meaning once we sell these bonds, the rates are not going to vary. They are set in stone, okay? Second piece, current interest, meaning these are not capital appreciation bonds, okay? The district's tax base is too robust to require the need for capital appreciation bonds. Sure. Capital appreciation bonds in a short kind of piece is they're bonds that are issued that delay the repayment of principal because a tax base is constrained. So for instance, real life situation, the wildfires in LA. Now you have various school districts whose AV has been completely decimated because of the wildfires. But there are still very real projects that need to take place and schools that need to be rebuilt. Unfortunately, there is not the assessed value there any longer. So capital appreciation bonds may be an appropriate financing resource for them. However, that's not the case here at BUSD. So I want to make sure that I went ahead and highlighted that. Long-term AV growth rate of 3.5%. So remember when we looked back at the assessed value slide and we were talking about growth rates, in every single instance, whether we look at short-term rates or long-term rates, the district's AV has been well above that 3.5%. Finally, optional redemption in 10 years, meaning if interest rates 10 years from the date that we sell these bonds are more attractive, can generate savings to the taxpayers, the district would be able to go ahead and refinance the debt, and any savings that are generated from that refinance would be passed directly on to the taxpayers and seen in lower tax rates for them, okay? The term, 30 years, which has been consistent with the prior Measure G issuances. On the lower corner, we have our pro forma debt service. So what this is in the red bars, we have what's already been issued in terms of Measure G bonds. You can barely see it because it's very small, but the gray striped bar represents Measure E, obviously a very small portion of this transaction. And then the larger bars, the blue bars, represent the Series F debt service. So you can see that the first 3 years, we are fully leveraging the tax rate. In the upper portion of the table, you can see that we have an estimated max tax rate for Measure F of $42.78. But when we take into consideration Measure E as well as what's outstanding, overall, that tax rate is probably somewhere around $58.90 or so. And the reason that we've gone ahead and amortized so much debt in the beginning of the loan is because, as most people know, short-term rates historically have been more advantageous, or they cost less, whereas longer-term rates, 20, 30 years, are more expensive. So the more principal that we can pay off early means the less interest that's outstanding and the less burden that's placed on the taxpayer. So it's an overall more efficient structure that is sensitive to the taxpayer, okay? We've then purposefully dropped off the tax rate in 2029 to allow the district the opportunity to layer on additional, Measure G debt, because as it's noted, there's still 82.5 million that will be outstanding for Measure G. So we want to make sure that the district has the opportunity to issue bonds when needed. And in conversation with Assistant Superintendent Khaleesi, it seems like that is about the time frame that you'll be potentially looking at a new issuance. Okay? Yes.
Thank you. And then it spikes up again after 2033?
2033, is that what you said? President?
According to the graph.
So according to the graph, yes. So what ends up happening is during 29 through 33, we've gone ahead and purposefully dropped off some of that principal. We probably could go ahead and amortize more principal there, but to be conservative, we're trying to just minimally amortize principal there to allow for the future GO bonds to amortize more principal in those years. So similar sort of tact where we pay off as much principal as we can in the early years and then allow for, yes, more room in the later years. If the district does end up issuing all of its remaining authorization in just one additional series of bonds, we'll be a little bit more creative and thoughtful of the tax rate, trying to minimize the impact to the taxpayer overall. So, but something to look forward to the next time we meet.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Moving on to slide 8. And, oh, excuse me, I skipped a slide, slide 7. So again, with the idea of focusing on Measure G and then broadening our horizons to look at the overall GO bond tax rate, we have again shown with these various bars what the impact is on the tax rate. My understanding is district staff has placed guide rails with this $171.80 threshold on the overall GO bond program. And so that is depicted with the yellow dotted line at the very top. Similar to our prior graphs, the red bars being prior debt. This includes all GO bond measures and refunding bonds. And then the striped bars being the pro forma debt service for the Series E and F. So in short, the more white space we see between these bars, the more flexibility and capacity that the district has for future GO bond debt issuances. Okay. Now moving on to slide 8. When we were looking at the initial plan of finance and refining it with both Assistant Superintendent Volmsby as well as Assistant Superintendent Khaleesi, we took a hard look at the cash flows and kind of what the construction timeline looked like for future Measure G projects. So we initially looked at two issuances, one in 2025 and one in 2026. The first one being 80 million for 2025, and then later in 2026, an issue of 76.5 million. In further discussions, it doesn't seem like there is an issue with being able to spend down the proceeds within the 3-year confines that the IRS places on tax-exempt dollars. So rather than looking at paying cost of issuance twice, what if we went ahead and brought those two issuances into a one singular issuance of 150 million? So what are the implications here? Obviously, the district enjoys the economy of scales. We're not going to be paying consultants twice for the work done in 2025 as well as the work done in 2026. What that results in is cost savings of 137,700. Another piece here that is not included is there has been a policy shift in recent months with our new president. And as a result of it, there are concerns about tax-exempt financings for municipalities. To give a little history lesson, when we went and back in 2017, when President Trump was in office, he did go ahead and place a lot of emphasis on tax cuts and trying to promote the economy through those tax cuts. In the Tax Cuts and Jobs Acts of 2017, one of the things that impacted school districts and other municipalities was there was an elimination of tax-exempt advanced refundings. So in 2021, I worked with Assistant Superintendent Fonsby on the district's 2021 refinancing, which was done on an advance basis, and we did that taxable. Because of COVID and the interesting market dynamics that were going on right then and there, taxable rates were actually more advantageous than tax-exempt rates. So the district not only was able to realize savings through this advanced refunding, but was also able to shorten its debt service, and that was impacted on Measure I. So good story for the district overall. However, fast forward to current days, what does the difference between tax-exempt and taxable rates look like right now? On average, the difference between a tax-exempt rate and a taxable rate is about 1.5%, meaning that's going to cost your taxpayers a lot more in interest if tax-exempt financings go away from municipalities. So we're trying to be thoughtful about how we are issuing debt. Although nothing has been decided and nothing is concrete, this does provide the district with those dollars necessary to support its Measure G program. And hopefully we will have more clarity in 2028 and beyond on what is to happen with tax-exempt financings. Okay. My final slide is discussion on what's next. So here today before you, there is the authorizing resolution, which will empower district staff to do whatever is necessary to effectuate the transaction itself. Because we are looking at a $150 million transaction and trying to make this transaction as marketable as possible to all investors, we will be seeking 2 separate credit ratings, which is something that the district has not done in the past. This will allow for more investors to have the ability to read the thoughts of both Moody's and S&P in order to make an informed investment decision. We'll then receive those credit opinions on Tuesday, April 1st, and then we will move to a competitive sale, barring any changes in the market. Of course, we'll be flexible and nimble for that, but at this point in time, April 9th looks like a good time for a competitive sale. A competitive sale gives an equitable opportunity for all potential underwriters to participate in the sale of bonds. We've seen great success in this. Last year, the district's competitive sale was on par with the pricing results of school districts that were AAA rated, which is one rating category above the districts. So we've seen a lot of success there. We will then move to close the transaction April 23rd, which is 2 weeks after the competitive sale, at which point the underwriter, who will be known at the time that the sale takes place, will wire the bond proceeds to the county on behalf of the district. And then Assistant Superintendent Khaleesi has his piggy bank to go ahead and build those various Measure G projects. So that is all I have for the board. Any questions?
Thank you so much for your presentation. I think the board does have a couple of questions. I have a question not related to what was presented tonight, but more so about the history of our other bonds, Pauline, that I hope you can answer. And I just want to first preface my question by saying my question is really just rooted in ensuring that we are maintaining our fiduciary responsibility. And so as it relates to our other bonds that don't have active authorization, so our other bonds that have no other money in them anymore, do we know, and you could also get this to me later if you need to, do we know how quickly we depleted or sold those bonds and how long we held them for?
I'd have to actually get that information back to you.
Okay.
Because we're just focusing on Measure G at this moment.
You can absolutely get it back to me later. I just want to make sure that we are I already said earlier what I wanted to make sure we're doing. So I wanted to ask just a historical question. But in terms of the presentation, everything pretty much makes sense to me. And for me, it feels like this is kind of the right move for us to do right now. And I appreciate knowing the calendar of what comes next. That really helps us in our decision making. And so if there are any other board directors who have questions, we'll entertain those questions and then we'll entertain a motion. Director Shinosky.
Just super quick, one question and then one comment. My question is, I noticed that the cost of the rating agency for that's because you're doing more than one, great. More than one rating agency. So it more than doubled the cost of the two different issuances. And then my comment is simply from the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee meeting that we had last night, where the committee members were really happy that we were doing a single issuance to save the money because we do have so many projects in the pipeline, so we know we can spend it. So I just want to also emphasize that and thank you for putting that together in that way to save us those dollars, or to save the taxpayers those dollars. So thanks.
Are there any other questions from the board? None? Okay, hearing none, the recommendation that has come to us tonight is that we approved the resolution, ultimately the information that we were provided with tonight, and authorize the district officers and staff to take the necessary steps to complete the financing. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Director Shinosky. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Corn. All those in favor, please signify with the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposers? Abstentions? The ayes have it and the motion carries. Thank you all so much for your presentation and for your thoughtfulness around this item.
Thank you.
We have surprisingly reached the end of our board meeting, but as always, I want to draw your attention to our information items before we move to the second opportunity for public comment. There are a number of board policies on here, and so please take a look at them. The first reading is on there for tonight, and the second reading will come on for consent, as well as some attachments on that you'll find on Gamut for Measure E's first interim fiscal report. So board members, please take a look at that. At this time, we will move on to our second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone who is here for public comment? Okay, I do not have any cards that are green. Ms. Chavez, if you could please promote me online so that I will be able to see if we have any public commenters online. I'm a panelist now. Okay, thank you. And
There aren't any hands that are raised online for public comment, and so I will close the public comment period at this time. Are there any extended board member comments this evening? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for adjournment at 9:46 p.m. Have a great evening, everyone.